Sonam, we can start.
Yes, sir. A very good afternoon to one and all present. I extend a warm welcome to Dr. Sulochana Bhatt, ma'am, head of the Institute CARI Bangalore. I extend a very hearty welcome to our speaker of the day, Dr. Raghavendra Naik, sir, Research Officer at Bureau of Indian Standards, New Delhi. A warm welcome to all the participants, officers, colleagues, and staff of CRI Bangalore, and all the participants who have joined us today. So I'd like to I would like to give a brief introduction about our institute. So Central Ayurveda Research Institute Bangalore is one of the peripheral institutes of CCRAS under the Ministry of Ayush, Government of India. The institute has been engaged in clinical research, drug standardization, and survey of medicinal plants. CARI is successfully providing OPD consultations, free Ayurveda medicines, basic diagnostics, Panchkarma and yoga facilities to the needy public through hospital and through outreach programs such as PHCRP and SCSP. The institute has been recognized as the Center of Excellence in Diabetes and has also been recognized as Peripheral Pharmacovigilance Center by Ministry of Ayush. CRI Bangalore is involved in various research studies and collaborative projects with bodies like ICMR, NIMHANS, and many more. Bharat Ki Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav is an initiative of the Government of India to commemorate 75 glorious years of progressive India and its rich history, diverse population, magnificent culture, and great achievements. Under this campaign, our institute has been conducting various activities such as mass distribution of Ayush prophylactic medicines and distribution of IEC material for awareness. And as a part of this campaign, we are conducting a series of webinars, as you all are aware, on Ayurveda and COVID-19. And the topic for today's webinar is initiatives of CCRAS and Ministry of Ayush for prevention and management of COVID-19. Our speaker of the day, Dr. Raghavendra Naik, sir, he needs no introduction. He's very much a part of our CRI Bangalore family. But still, I'd like to speak a brief bio about sir. So Dr. Raghavendra Naik, sir, is working as research officer in CCRAS, Ministry of Ayush, and is presently posted at Bureau of Indian Standards, New Delhi, to develop standards for Ayush systems. Sir completed his BA-MS from SDMCA Udupi, MD in Dravya Guna, and PhD from Gujarat Ayurveda University, Jamnagar. Sir has also completed a certificate course in Marma Chikitsa from National Ayurveda Research Institute for Panchkarma, Kerala. Sir has published more than 50 scientific research papers in various national and international journals and delivered around 25 lectures in different seminars and workshops. Sir has been the recipient of several awards for his active contribution to research, and we are very happy to have him with us today. So, sir, now I request you to kindly share your insights on the topic for today's webinar. And I also request the participants to keep posting their questions in the chat box. We'll take them up one by one after the talk. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sonamji. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think slides are also visible, no?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay. Namaste and a very good afternoon and regards to respected AD in charge, Dr. Sulochana Bhatt madam, today's in charge, Dodmani sir, and all my seniors, friends and participants from different other institutions. I can see some participants from Jamnagar and some other institution like CCRS Tripura. A very warm welcome to all of you. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity. The topic allotted to me is initiative by Ministry of Ayush as well as CCRS for prophylaxis and management of COVID-19 related activities in last 2 years. As most of the uh, participants are actively involved in these initiatives through different programs. Majority of the participants are aware about these initiatives. So I will try to keep it more concise, and I will try to complete it within the next 25 to 30 minutes. The outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic challenged the whole global.
Dr. Raghu, the sides are not moving and your voice also not loud enough.
Next slide, sir.
Sir, your slides are not moving.
Okay. Now, sir.
It is visible, sir. Try putting it in slideshow.
Okay. Now.
It is visible, sir, now.
Okay. Okay. As we all know, the outbreak of COVID-19 has challenged the whole healthcare system globally, and the researchers and clinicians across the globe are still struggling with this crisis. When we observe the Indian scenario, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India took rapid measures in controlling and prevention of the prevention as well as in the treatment of the COVID-19 by issuing various advisories as well as guidelines. Along with this, a well-organized public health and awareness programs promoting the use of Ayush system of medicines as also one of the reason for managing this crisis with the relatively lower fatality rate when than most of the other developed countries. Uh, these are some important initiatives by Ministry of Ayush in this regard. The Ministry of Ayush issued various guidelines and public health advisories. It's also encouraged the Ayush institutes across the country for optimum utilization of available infrastructure and manpower for activities related to the COVID-19. Next, to deal with various aspects of research, clinical as well as the experimental research. I think again slides are next. Okay. To deal with various aspects of these research activities, Ministry of Ayush has also constituted a interdisciplinary research and development task force consisting of scientists and researchers from various fields and various institutions. Based upon their recommendations, National Clinical Management Protocol is published, and the Minister of Ayush has launched a nationwide campaign for distribution of Ayush 64 and Kabasur Kudinur in the country, and all these activities are disseminated to general public through various platforms of the Ministry of Ayush. Ministry has issued various guidelines and advisories to improve the immunity and advised simple home remedies easily accessible to the general public. It also recommended a set of self-care guidelines developed by eminent Ayurveda experts for preventive health measures with special emphasis on respiratory health and improving the general immunity of the public. Subsequent to the issuance of these Ayush advisories and guidelines, the ministry developed and launched Ayush Sanjeevani mobile application to generate the data on acceptance usage of these Ayush advocacies among the general population, and its impact in prevention of COVID-19, and a cross-sectional analysis was also done for this purpose. Uh, the observation shows that more than 1.35 crore cumulative data of Ayush beneficiaries have been collected through this application, and further more than 7,20,000 individual responses by general public, and more than 74,000 individual responses submitted by the Ayush physicians of their self-use has also been captured through this application during this study. The finding of this study highlights that more than 85% participants in the study are used Ayush measures, and about 79% believe that Ayush measures gave all an overall feeling of good health for them. Uh, and 89.8 percentage of the participants believe that they are benefited from the practice of the Ayush advisories, and more than 63% participants observed improvement in parameters of well-being like sleep, appetite, bowel, etc. Uh, the guidelines for registered practitioners uh, of respective Ayush systems were issued by the Ministry of Ayush to have a considerable degree of uniformity in the management of this COVID-19. Uh, Along with existing general guidelines for the clinical researchers, which is developed by CCRS, some specific guidelines for clinical studies on COVID-19 were also published by the Ministry of Ayush. And again, the considering the urgent need of delivering healthcare services to the public during lockdown period, the ministry also published telemedicine practice guidelines for the Ayush practitioners. In collaboration with NIMHANS and SVASA Bengaluru, the ministry released protocol for psychological rehabilitation of COVID-19 patients during this period. And after that, during the resurgence of COVID-19, and based on the experiences of the first wave, the ministry released guidelines for Ayush practitioners for COVID-19 patients in home isolation, home care guidelines for children, and advisory for Ayush practitioners about prophylactic care in children during the COVID-19, etc. And further, Ayush preventive measures for self-care during the COVID-19 pandemic has also been revised, and as per the need of the current scenario, and published. Apart from this, the Ministry of Ayush also issued advisory for Ayush practitioners on ethical practices during the COVID-19 pandemic. And another important advisory is published by Ministry of Ayush is regarding the dissemination of preventing the dissemination of misleading information about the Ayush intervention, and advertising claims regarding the COVID-19. With a vision of maximum stakeholder mobilization, the ministry encouraged the Ayush Institute across the country for optimum utilization of the available infrastructure as well as staff to combat the COVID-19 pandemic. As a result, several Ayush hospitals in different regions of the country were designated as quarantine and COVID care centers by the respective state governments. Even the Honorable Prime Minister of India also addressed the Ayush stakeholders to provide their services in this crisis situation. Total 8,32,000 Ayush practitioners and paramedical staff and students responded to the appeal and enlisted themselves as COVID warriors on the government portal to offer their services for clinical management, surveillance, or management of COVID isolation centers and quarantine wards. Training on COVID-19 related activities were provided to the Ayush stakeholders to develop master trainers across the state. Total 1,75,000 Ayush stakeholders trained through the government platform, that is IGOT platform, in collaboration with the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare across the country. And these master trainers have further trained Ayush personnel, including Ayush students also. Further, a force of more than 37,000 as of now, the Ayush staff was developed for COVID-19 related healthcare services. Ministry has also started a dedicated community support helpline, that is toll-free number 14443, to provide Ayush-based approaches and the solutions for the challenges raised by COVID-19. The helpline is operational pan-India from 6 a.m. to 12 midnight, all the 7 days a week. The experts would not only be providing counseling and feasible remedies to patients, but also guide them about the availability of nearby Ayush facilities. As of now, the portal has received more than 16 lakh 7,000 calls since its inception from all across the India. Ministry has constituted R&D task force chaired by Professor Bhushan Patwardhan, former Vice Chairman UGC New Delhi. Experts from premier institutions and research organizations such as AIMS, ICMR, Ayush Institute formulated and designed clinical research protocols for prophylaxis as well as add-on intervention studies on COVID-19. Also, they drafted the guidelines for Ayush clinical studies in COVID-19, covering various aspects of the clinical trial protocol. Further, the task force also constituted 7 working groups to deal with the different aspects of the research and public health. And as per their recommendations, some Ayush CSIR collaborative studies on Ayurvedic intervention as prophylaxis and add-on intervention to standard operative care are also initiated. These are the 4 areas as per the R&D task force recommendation. The studies were focused. Treatment studies, both standalone and
Dr. Raghu?
intervention. Ha, sir?
Sorry for the disturbance. Your voice is not loud enough.
Okay. Now, sir?
Innu ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮಾಡಿ.
ಇಷ್ಟೇ sir.
Okay, okay.
Okay, la? Now it's okay, sir?
It's little better, sir, but it's still quite low.
Then the second one is prophylactic studies. To study the impact of Ayush-based prophylactic intervention in the high-risk population. Then the experimental studies for the evaluation of compounds of Ayush drugs for action against SARS-CoV-2 main protease, and the retrospective observational studies to study the outcome of Ayush intervention being utilized during the COVID-19 pandemic. These are the studies conducted by various Ayush system under these 4 headings. 44 studies were conducted under prophylactic management, and the same number of studies were conducted treatment purposes. 50 studies were focusing on these, 22 studies in the field of preclinical experimental studies, and 4 survey studies were conducted in the Ayush system of medicine. 50% of the studies were from Ayurveda system, 29 studies were from homeopathy, and 19 studies were from yoga and naturopathy, and 13 studies under system of medicine, and 10 studies were conducted by Unani system of medicine. Among the 70 studies conducted in the Ayurvedic system of medicine, National Institute of Nutrition, Hyderabad, in the collaboration with ICMR, Rajasthan Ayurveda University, Jodhpur, and Rashtriya Ayurveda Vidyapita, Delhi, conducted 1 study each. 4 studies were Ayush CSIR collaborative studies. 13 preclinical studies were Ayush Department of Biotechnology preclinical studies. National Institute of Northeastern Institute of Ayurveda and Homeopathy conducted 3 studies. National Institute of Ayurveda conducted 4 studies among the national institutes. Even IPGT and RA Jamnagar conducted 5 clinical research studies. All India Institute of Ayurveda conducted 11 studies, and as a apex body for the research and planning and execution of the research, maximum number of studies, total 29 studies were conducted or collaborated or monitored by Central Council for Research in Ayurvedic Sciences. Among these 29 studies conducted by CCRS, 14 studies were related to prophylactic management, 10 studies were related to therapeutic intervention in COVID-19, 2 observational studies conducted by CCRS, 1 survey study, 1 systematic review, and 1 preclinical experimental study was conducted by CCRS or monitored by CCRS. Let us see some of the important studies conducted by in the Ayurveda system of medicine. This is one of the largest study conducted in India by CCRS through its 20 peripheral institutes across the country. Total 178,000 people were provided Ayurveda Raksha kit as a prophylactic measures in the pandemic of COVID-19. Along with the standard preventive measures for the COVID-19 for a duration of 1 month. And it is that lower incidence of COVID-19 symptoms in the Ayurveda intervention group was observed during each of the follow-up periods. In another study, ashwagandha is studied as a prophylactic intervention in healthcare workers. This is a randomized multicentric study involving 400 healthcare workers. Healthcare workers with negative RT-PCR for COVID-19 and SARS-CoV-2 antibodies were included in the study, and ashwagandha was provided to them for 16 weeks. The study concluded that ashwagandha was equally effective than that of the hydroxychloroquine in the chemoprophylaxis against COVID-19 in healthcare workers, and it has also shown superior safety profile, and also several health measures, particularly anxiety and stress, were also improved significantly by treating the ashwagandha. In another study conducted by Tibia College, New Delhi, 50 healthcare personnel were given Chyawanprash for a duration of 1 month, and it is observed that protection rate was about 98.91% in prevention of COVID-19 during the treatment with Ayurveda intervention, comparing the incidences of COVID-19 in 3 periods, that is before the treatment, during the treatment, and after the treatment. In another study conducted in 6 identified containment zones of New Delhi, total more than 9,000 people were provided with Guduchi Ganavati, Sudarshana Ganavati, and ashwagandha tablet. And importantly, incidence rate of 0.17% was observed after the Ayurvedic intervention, compared to the 4.1% in the general population of Delhi during the same period. And more than 98% of the participants were devoid of any symptoms throughout the trial period, and even the general statistically significant improvement was observed in parameters of general well-being of the participants. In another study conducted in the 6 containment areas of Rajasthan, more than 10,000 population was given Guduchi Ganavati 1 gram for 45 days. And even this study also concludes that lower incidence of COVID-19 in the treatment group, and episodes of non-COVID illness was also significantly lesser in the treatment group. These are the 2 studies conducted by National Institute of Indian Medical Heritage, Hyderabad, in collaboration with Telangana state government. In one study, 2,800 healthcare workers or containment zone population exposed to COVID-19 were given the Ayurvedic treatment, that is Guduchi, as a prophylactic measure. It is observed that protection rate in trial group is 100%, as none of the participants turned COVID-19 positive till 45th day follow-up, whereas in control group, 10 cases found COVID-19 positive. In another study, Ayurvedic Raksha kit was given as prophylactic measure among police personnel working in the vicinity of COVID-19 facilities. Total 1,500 participants were included in this study. Only 2 participants become COVID-19 positive in trial group, as compared to the 15 positive cases in the control group. In both the studies, infection rate is minimum in the control group, in the trial group as compared to the control group. In another study conducted by CCRS Hyderabad unit in collaboration with the Telangana state government, 500 Ayush healthcare workers working in the COVID-19 facilities were given Ayurveda Raksha Kit 1, which is Ayush 64 Guduchi Ganawat and Chavnuprasha. It is observed that no COVID-19 positive case in trial group as compared to the 5 positive cases in the control group after 43rd day of follow-up. And even infection rate is also nil in trial group as compared to the 2% infection rate in control group. In another study conducted at the East Khasi Hills of district of Meghalaya, 5,000 people were provided with the Ayurveda Raksha Kit as a prophylactic measure among the high-risk population. The treatment found effective in reducing the incidence of COVID-19 as well as better immune status score is observed in the treatment group. As far as the clinical studies are concerned, this is one of the Ayush CSIR collaborative study on the Ayush 64. Ayush 64 was given as add-on treatment along with standard operative care among 140 COVID-19 patients for 12 weeks, and participants treated with Ayush 64 recovered early when compared to the standard care, and more patients from the Ayush 64 group recovered within 1 week of randomization than those on the standard care, and mean time to negative RT-PCR was lesser in Ayush 64 group compared to standard group. In another study, the evaluation of Ayush 64 as add-on therapy for patients with COVID-19. This is a randomized controlled trial conducted at the Government Ayurvedic Medical College, Nagpur. Total 60 participants were given Ayush 64 along with standard operative care for a duration of 30 days. It is observed that clinical recovery was better at 15 days in the Ayush 64 group compared to the standard care. Even after 30th day also, clinical recovery in all the participants of the Ayush 64 group was observed when compared to the 85.52 in the control group, and the reduction in the levels of interleukins was statistically significant in the Ayush 64 group. In another study related to the Ayush 64, total 80 participants were given Ayush 64 along with the standard operative care for a duration of 30 days, and a statistically significant difference in the proportion of participants with the clinical recovery at each follow-up was observed, and even compared to the control group, proportion of the participants with the negative RT-PCR was better in Ayush 64 group on all the follow-up visits. In another study conducted at Medanta Hospital, Gurugram, Guduchi Pippali tablet was given to 60 participants for a duration of 1 month or till the discharge of the patient from the hospital, and it is observed that no patient progressed to critical stage in Ayurveda add-on group, and all the patients in the Ayurveda add-on group turned asymptomatic till 6th day, whereas only 40% turned asymptomatic in the control group, and mean duration of the hospital stay was also less in Ayurveda add-on group compared to the control group. In another study, Guduchi Ghanavati was given. The study was conducted at Pandit Kushalal Sharma Government Ayurveda College, Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh. In this randomized controlled trial, 30 participants were included, and medicine was provided for a duration of 30 days. It is observed that in Guduchi Ghanavati group, 93.3% of the participants turned RT-PCR negative compared to 66.6% participants in the control group by 10th day. Even the earlier clinical recovery was also seen in the Guduchi Ghanavati group, and no events of mortality or progression to the critical stage was also observed in the treatment group. In another study conducted at a COVID care center, Ahmedabad, Gujarat, this is a retrospective cohort study. Total 541 COVID patients admitted between 15th April to 31st May 2020, where the data of these patients were analyzed, that standard operative care along with the Dashimula Patyadhikwata and Tikkattu Chuna Samshamunivati I-64 tablet and Guduchi Ganavati is provided in this COVID care center. And the results suggest that no appearance of COVID-19 symptoms in asymptomatic COVID-19 patients was observed. Even early clinical recovery observed in symptomatic COVID-19 patients in the Ayurveda add-on group, and no events of mortality progression to the critical stage was also observed in this study. In another study conducted at AIMS Jodhpur, Ayush 64 was given as add-on therapy for the patients with the COVID-19 infection. On 60 patients, this trial was conducted for a duration of 30 days. This study also suggests that proportion of participants with the negative RT-PCR was more in Ayush 64 group compared to the standard care group. This is a standalone treatment to assess the efficacy of Ayush 64 in mild to moderate COVID-19 cases, conducted at Chaudhary Brahmprakash Ayurvedic Charak Samsthan, New Delhi. This was conducted on 40 patients. For the medicine was given for a duration of 14 days. It is observed that more than 86% participants showed clinical recovery after 14 days of the intervention, and 69%, more than 69% participants turned RT-PCR negative on 15th day, and the rest of the participants recovered in due course, and no event of mortality or progression to critical stage was observed in this study. These are some preclinical studies conducted by CCRS or Ministry of Ayush in collaboration with the Department of Biotechnology, CSIR, etc. The details of these results of these studies are available in the Ayush research portal. You can go through this. Regarding the publication or dissemination of the findings of these research studies, Ministry has constituted an advisory panel to facilitate Ayush researchers in disseminating the outcomes of the research studies on COVID-19 through scientific publication in journals of high repute. The panel included eminent researchers and senior faculties from various disciplines and various institutions. The total 86 manuscripts were drafted by this panel, and 30 manuscripts were published in high impact journals, and 27 manuscripts are available as preprints as of now. Ministry has constituted an interdisciplinary committee under the chairmanship of Dr. V.M. Katoch, former Director General ICMR, for integration of Ayurveda and yoga intervention in the National Clinical Management Protocol for COVID-19. The committee formulated its recommendations based on the interim trends of ongoing or completed Ayush studies on COVID-19 and experimental and clinical published data indicating potential benefits and safety of Ayush interventions. Based on the committee's report and NITI Aayog and ICMR recommendations, the ministry issued the National Clinical Management Protocol for COVID-19 for Ayurveda and Yoga to enable uniform clinical management of this pandemic. This National Clinical Management Protocol incorporates guidelines for prophylaxis management of asymptomatic and mild COVID-19 cases and post-COVID management also. The yoga protocol is for primary prevention from COVID-19 and post-COVID care by improving the respiratory and cardiac efficiency, reducing stress and anxiety, and even enhancing the immunity. Nationwide campaign for distribution of Ayush 64 and Kabasura Kudineer through 87 clinical units of Research Council and national institutes under the Ministry of Ayush across the country with support of Seva Bharati has been launched by the Honorable Minister of State in charge, Ministry of Ayush, Shri Kiran Rijiju in May 2021. Total 96,139 participants enrolled in this respective community based study. and clinical recovery was observed in 89% participants treated in the Ayush 64 group and 88.5% participants treated in the Kabasura Kodinir group, and 95% and 78.8% participant turned RT-PCR negative by 21st day who received Ayush 64 and Kabasura Kodinir respectively. To disseminate these activities, these initiatives of COVID-19 among the masses, the ministry has launched a campaign, Ayush for Immunity, to bring behavioral changes in the general public towards the promotion of immunity through Ayush intervention, wherein more than 50,000 people were participated. The ministry has also published a campaign bulletin on Ayush for Immunity. Webinars were also organized to sensitize the Ayush practitioners by various CCRS institute as well as other national institute and colleges also. Most importantly, the national repository on Ayush COVID-19 clinical and other R&D initiatives was developed to disseminate information related to Ayush initiatives, COVID-19 related Ayush clinical trials and scientific publications, and is available on the Ayush research portal of the Ministry of Ayush. The ministry has also set up an Ayush COVID-19 dashboard to furnish the guidelines related to Ayush measures for improving the immunity of official communications, research undertaken on COVID-19, and even the measures for prophylaxis and management are also displayed in this dashboard, which is open for public. With this, I like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity, and the officers from the Ministry of Ayush as well as the CCRS, especially Dr. Amit and Dr. Vaibhav and others to for their help and support in the collecting the data and preparing this presentation. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for enlightening us with the recent initiatives and guidelines by CCRAS and Ministry of Ayush in this during this COVID pandemic. And also thank you for updating all of us on the recent research that has taken place that shows the efficacy of interventions that are based on Ayurveda. Thank you so much, sir. I now request the participants to ask questions if they have any questions from our resource person. Okay. So I would like to invite Shubhashri ma'am for her concluding remarks. Ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. Respected Sulochana madam, in her absentia, Dr. Dodmani sir, in charge of CRI today, all my senior and junior officers from CRI, and I see so many new doctors also joining us, Dr. Rinki, Dr. Vinita, and all the other members of CRI family. Actually, Dr. Raghavendra deserves a applause for such a colorful presentation with facts and figures, especially during this post-lunch session. Dr. Raghavendra, you have successfully managed to convey everything in a very comprehensive way, and that too through this attractive slides. Actually, we have been a part of many of the activities connected to COVID in one or the other activities like Ayur Raksha Kit distribution and implementation of some of the programs, and many of you can get connected with all those activities. However, it's very heartening to know that there is a overall a very good contribution from Ministry of Ayush when everything has been summed up together. So the target of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav in conveying this and disseminating to the public has been achieved, especially after knowing about all these activities. We really feel that some substantial contribution has been done from the Ministry of Ayush also. So I thank Dr. Raghavendra for the wonderful presentation, and Dr. Sonam, Sonam, you can go ahead with the next part. Thank you, Dr. Raghavendra, and all the listeners also. Maximum number of participants I can see here with 49, with probably fans of Dr. Raghavendra also joining in here today.
Thank you, ma'am. I request everyone to switch on their camera so that we can take a snapshot.
ರಘು ತುಂಬಾ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿತ್ರಿ. ಸೂಪರ್ ಸ್ಲೈಡ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಳು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ನಿಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲ.
ಕಳಿಸ್ತೇನೆ ಸರ್.
ಕಳಿಸಿ.
It's done. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to thank Assistant Director in Charge Dr. Sulochana Bhatt ma'am and today's in charge Dr. Dodmani sir for their support and guidance in conducting this webinar series. I express a heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Raghavendra Naik sir for sharing such valuable insights and knowledge with us. I thank Dr. Shubhashri ma'am, Dr. Bhavya ma'am, Dr. Rajendra sir for their technical inputs and support. And I thank all the officers, staff, and colleagues of CRI Bangalore for joining us today, and all the participants who have been there patiently listening, who have stayed with us for both the webinars. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And before we leave, I would like to make an announcement that we will be having our next webinar on 11th March on the topic Importance of Mental Health in COVID-19 Pandemic. And our speaker will be Dr. Suhas Shetty, Principal BMK Ayurveda Medical College, Belgavi. So all of you are welcome to join us in our next webinar as well. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. We'll conclude. Thank you.